You are 26 years old when the call comes in, and by midnight the oldest men in Little Havana are waiting for you to speak. 3 hours earlier you were a lieutenant with ambition and a reputation for solving problems quietly. Now the man above you is gone, his chair still warm, his phone still ringing, and every shipment moving through Miami is paused because no one knows who signs off. You do. That is the difference between being dangerous and being in charge. Dangerous men make noise. Men in charge make decisions. The meeting happens in the back room of a restaurant you bought but never eat in. The ceiling fans spin slowly. The air smells like espresso and tension. Faces that used to look past you now study you for weakness. You feel it immediately. The calculation. You are younger than their sons. Younger than some of their mistakes. They are wondering if you will last the week. You do not sit in the big chair right away. That would look eager. Instead, you pour yourself water. Not rum. Not whiskey. Water tells them you are here to think, not celebrate. When you finally sit, you don't raise your voice. You lower it. You tell them shipments resume at dawn. Prices adjust 5% to offset instability. Anyone who hesitates can leave now and compete. No one stands. Outside, Miami hums the way it always does, boats cutting across Biscayne Bay, neon bleeding into wet pavement, tourists dancing 3 blocks from decisions that will reshape their neighborhoods. That is the contrast you understand better than anyone in the room. This city runs on sunlight and shadow. You just inherited the shadow. When the meeting ends, your phone lights up with messages from rivals testing boundaries. Condolences. Questions. Subtle threats wrapped in courtesy. You answer none of them. Power is not proven in replies. It is proven in silence that makes other men nervous. At 2:17 a.m., alone on the balcony of a condo registered under someone else's name, you realize something colder than fear. You wanted this. Not the chaos, not the blood that cleared the chair, but the control. The ability to decide which doors open and which stay locked. You tell yourself you will run things smarter, cleaner, different. By sunrise, the illusion of control starts to crack. Becoming the youngest drug lord in Miami is not a promotion. It is exposure. Yesterday, mistakes belonged to someone older, someone with scars thick enough to absorb consequences. Today, every decision traces back to you. The port calls asking about delayed containers. A distributor in Hialeah wants reassurance. A nightclub owner in Brickell wonders if security arrangements will change. They are not asking questions. They are measuring stability. You visit the warehouse personally, not because you need to, but because visibility is currency. The men unloading crates straighten when you walk in. Some nod with respect. Others nod with calculation. You remember being in their position, watching leadership for flaws. Back then you thought power looked effortless. Now you see the machinery behind it, cash flow charts, burner phones, contingency routes, the quiet understanding with a customs official who pretends not to notice certain serial numbers. By noon, your accountant shows you numbers that would make a tech CEO blink. Profit margins higher than any legal venture you could have built by 30. But the contrast hits harder than the wealth. Every dollar represents risk distributed across hundreds of lives. Couriers who swallow packages. Dock workers who look the other way. Young men who think this is faster than college. You are not just running product. You are running gravity. Everything bends toward the money. In the afternoon, a rival crew tests you. A small theft. 2 kilos disappear from a mid-level distributor. In the past, that would trigger immediate violence, a loud message sent through broken bones. You pause. Rage would prove youth. Patience proves dominance. Instead of retaliation, you invite their leader to dinner. Public. Visible. Calm. You let him talk. Let him posture. Then you slide a photo across the table, his younger brother stepping into a school at 8:15 that morning. Not a threat. Just information. The product is returned before midnight. Word spreads faster than gunfire ever could. The youngest drug lord in Miami does not shout. He calculates. That night, alone again, you feel the weight shifting. Not fear, not guilt, something heavier. Responsibility. Not for morality, but for momentum. If you stumble, the vacuum will swallow everyone attached to you. You understand now. Power is not freedom. It is obligation sharpened into a blade you must hold steady. Year 1 ends without fireworks. No raids. No assassinations. No dramatic betrayals. That is your first real victory. Stability is invisible, and invisibility is survival. You diversify routes, reduce flashy displays, cut out 2 mid-level managers who were skimming just enough to think you would not notice. They do not disappear. They retire abruptly, relocated with severance packages generous enough to buy silence. The older bosses call you soft. Quietly, they also copy you. But Miami never stays still. Federal indictments roll through other organizations. A flashy crew in Wynwood collapses after a wiretap scandal. News anchors talk about crackdowns and task forces. Cameras zoom in on confiscated bricks stacked like trophies. You watch from a distance and feel something unfamiliar. Gratitude for boredom. Chaos makes headlines. Discipline builds empires. Then the call comes from someone you cannot ignore. Not a rival. Not a distributor. A man whose voice carries no accent and no emotion. He does not threaten. He suggests a conversation about regional stability. You understand immediately. The game is larger than territory maps and nightclub fronts. Systems intersect. Interests align. Your survival depends less on muscle and more on navigation. You meet in a marina office overlooking water so blue it looks artificial. Boats glide past, families laughing under open skies. Inside, the conversation is clinical. Supply routes. Predictability. Avoiding unnecessary violence that attracts federal heat. You are not being hunted. You are being integrated. That realization chills you more than any threat. The underworld and the surface world are not opposites. They are parallel structures sharing foundations. Driving back through Ocean Drive at dusk, neon lights flicker on as tourists pose for photos. You see the contrast clearly now. The city sells fantasy by day and consumes it by night. You control a fraction of that consumption. Not because you are the most brutal, but because you are the most disciplined. At 27, you own properties you cannot publicly claim, command loyalty you cannot publicly acknowledge, and influence neighborhoods that will never know your name. You wanted control. You have it. But control has narrowed your world to calculations and contingency plans. You do not move without security. You do not speak without intent. You do not trust without verification. If they removed the title tomorrow, stripped the money, dissolved the organization, you would still scan rooms for exits. You would still measure silence for meaning. Becoming the youngest drug lord in Miami did not just change your status. It rewired your instincts. And there is no retirement from instinct.